Hey everybody, I'm going to talk about times in which I started to realize that I needed to start turning the party out. My house used to be a party house a long time ago. We had a whole basement set up, a homemade bar, strobe lights, big screen TV, loud music, all the things that you think that you would need in order to have a good time at a party. Used to have a collection of bottles from all the bottles that we drank. Thought that made us cool. Used to smoke weed every once in a while with all of our friends. Thought that made us look cool. Used to take some pills every once in a while, not understanding how bad those pills really were for us. I didn't know that those Percocets was another way of packaging heroin. I didn't know that those benzodiazepines that we were taking may potentially lead to something else. And about 19 years old, I turned to heroin for the first time, and things started going south really fast. One day we watched the movie Project X. We're like, oh yeah, we're gonna have a party like that, and we invited every single person that we knew, everybody. And we had them show up to the house. What's the worst that could happen, right? So all these people show up to the house. Now the basement's only about 500 square feet. It's not really designed for a lot of people. We have about 60, 70, 80 people in the basement. And while I drank like a 24-pack of beer before I left the party, thought that I needed to go out and get some weed. So we collected money from everybody to go get some weed. But my mindset was I'm going to get some heroin. Went out. And it didn't take very long for things to start going bad, because I went to this person's house and we were drinking and we were smoking, and next thing you know, the room started spinning really fast and I collapsed. Because that night I did heroin, I did K2, I was smoking weed, I drank a lot of alcohol. And when the room started spinning, I didn't know what was going to happen next. I fell in, I had a seizure. I smacked my head off a counter. Got a little bloody, to say the least. And then when I came to, which was literally only about a minute later, the person that owned that house said, yo, you got to go. Now, I'm like 20 minutes from my house. I shouldn't even have drove to the place that I was in the first place. I'm 20 minutes from my house, and I don't even remember where I parked my truck at this point. So where am I going to go? How am I going to get home? And, is it even safe to drive if I found my truck anyways? So I couldn't find my truck. I started walking down this random street. I don't even know which direction I'm supposed to go or anything, because I'm not familiar with the neighborhood. And somehow, somebody stopped and they picked me up on the side of the road. And it was one of my friends. And he took me to his house, and he happened to live near that neighborhood, I guess. His mom showing up and was disappointed that there was a drunk person sitting on her couch, and for some reason I thought it was a good idea to tell her, I'm not drunk, I'm just high, which only made the situation worse. So he talked to his mom for a few minutes, and she let me stay there for a while, but I started getting sick. Started coming off of the drugs. I wasn't feeling very well. Haven't eaten anything in probably like 2 or 3 days, so there's another issue going on. But I wasn't worried about that. I needed to get back to my house so I could get high, but I was ignoring my phone all night though, because I figured it was just people trying to ask where the stuff was. So I finally answered the phone, and it's my roommate, and he says, yo, you can't come back to the house. But when I was gone, a big fight happened at the house, and the police had the entire street on lockdown. Because I lived on a dead end, so what they did is they parked a car at the top, a police car at the top, and nobody was able to come down my street. And if they did, they made sure that they weren't going to my house, and they also had a car outside my house making sure nobody came out. When the big fight happened, the neighbors called the police. Now, I'm 19 at the time. Everybody at the house is 19 as well. And they all hide inside of a closet because they don't want to be seen by the police. And the one person that was over 21 in the house stood at the door and didn't let the cops in. but I was an addict. I wanted to get high, so I had to figure out how I was going to get back into my house. So what I did is I came up with this genius plan that I was going to take my truck to the next road down, which was also a dead end, and I was going to park in front of a housing development, and I was going to walk across a small creek, go through my yard, and come in my back door because my basement was below ground level and there's no way that the cops would see me. So, I mean, that's what I did, although I don't quite remember driving to my house at all. Somehow I made it there. I come in the house. I remember opening the door, telling everybody they don't have to be in the closet. The cops aren't looking through the window. Stop being so paranoid. There was 18 people in a closet that was only about maybe 80 square feet. So, long story short, I ended up passing out that night. Don't remember a whole lot about what happened necessarily. So when I passed out, I decided that, when I passed out, I woke up and everybody was gone. And I decided that I needed to start cleaning the yard out. And usually people that came to my house would clean everything, but under these circumstances, everybody kind of just dipped out. And there's stuff all through my yard. Cups in the yard and glasses everywhere and bottles everywhere. It's a mess. And we see that my friend's car keys are still there. His car is still there. We don't know where he's at. And it's raining. It's been raining since like the night before. Not exactly sure when. We don't know where my friend's at, but his car's there. So what we do is as we're cleaning up the yard, we find my friend laying in the bushes. He seen the cops. He jumped in the bushes and he passed out. Now, he was okay, but this is just the insanity that we go through, because you would think after having an experience like this that we would not have a party again. So the next week, what did we do? We had a party again. We're like, oh, it's going to work out different than last time, even though we're going to invite the same people to the house. So we invited all the same people to the house, and, well, we pretty much got the same results, except for this time the fight was between me and this other guy. And we ended up, going down the street with it, and it was a whole disaster. Worse than the first time. And that second time, I ended up getting picked up by the cops, and they let me out with a warning and stuff. So I thought that I was winning, I'd get away with it. Well, the problem is, for me, the party would never stop. So I went out, I got high, came back to my house. I was so high, I remember walking in my room and passing out on the bed. My breathing was all messed up, and my roommate was like, yo, are you okay? I was like, yeah, I'm fine. What I didn't know is I was in the middle of an overdose, and I could have died that day. And I justified it by saying maybe next time I'll just use a little less. I'll just use another less. Oh yeah, after overdosing like 3 times, I consistently told myself I could just use a little less. And this was about the time that fentanyl was put onto the street, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Pretty much what ended up happening, I got kicked out of that house, ended up being homeless for about 2.5 years. I had nowhere else to go. I became suicidal at that point. I went to jail, and they weren't going to let me out because I already ran so many times. And they told me that if I left jail to go to rehab, that I could do 28 days in rehab and be considered rehabilitated, which was a joke because I was planning on just staying there 28 days rolling out and getting high. I had no intention of getting sober, so they were going to pretty much send me out to my death, in my opinion. And I went to that rehab, and I heard this guy's story at that meeting in Bethlehem, PA, and I was like, I could do something different with my life now. I don't have to continue living the way that I was. And that is the beginning of my recovery process. I had to go through all the disasters of the party. I had to be homeless for about 2.5 years. I had to lose everything that I had. I had to blow the motor in multiple cars. I had to get to the point where I was stealing from my family and, doing things that compromised all my morals and values just for me to realize that I needed to do something different, because if I kept doing what I was doing, I was going to die alone. with nobody. So for those who are listening to this message, I just want you to know this for a fact. You can overcome your addiction if you are willing to do certain things, which requires being honest with yourself and getting involved in some form of program and finding a higher power. And my higher power is Jesus Christ. And if you can do these things, you never had to pick up and use another drug ever again.